Good evening, all of you. So, in second session, we are going to learn about deep learning, and this session will be taken by Dr. Mukesh Saraswat. Dr. Mukesh Saraswat is an associate professor at JP Institute of Information Technology, Noida, India. Dr. Saraswat has obtained his PhD in computer science and engineering from ABV IIITM Gwalior. He has more than 18 years of teaching and research experience. He has guided two PhD students, more than 50 MTech and PhD dissertation, and presently guiding three PhD students. He has published more than 40 journal and conference papers in the area of image processing, pattern recognition, data mining, and soft computing. He was the part of successfully completed two projects funded by DRDE Gwalior and SERB New Delhi on image analysis, and currently running one project funded by CRS RTU Kota. He has been an active member of many organizing committee of various conferences and workshops. He is a general chair of Conference of Intelligence System, an annual series of conference under SCRS. He was also a guest editor of Journal of Swarm Intelligence. He is an active member of IEEE, ACM, CSI professional bodies. His research area includes image processing, pattern recognition, mining, and soft computing. We welcome you, sir. So now, please start with your session.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kushum, and for inviting me and giving me a chance to share the knowledge among all the other faculty members and other participants. So, very good evening, everyone. Let me share the PPTs first, then I will start. Okay, my PPTs are visible?
Yes, now it's visible.
Okay, thank you. So, as we all are going through a very difficult phase, and we are facing lots of challenges, the world is facing these challenges, and this COVID just create lots of obstacle in our life, but still we are just searching the new platforms, we are searching a new things that can we can so that we can tackle out such challenges, such difficulties. And one important thing is if we talk who is going to help in such challenging tasks, and the answer is we can say the technologies, the scientists, the researchers are doing their best, their night to come up from such situation, and definitely technology is going to help in such scenario. And one such technology which we are going to study today is to discuss today is the deep learning. And this is the technique which is applied successfully in many domains and many application areas, and it is getting very tremendous accuracies. And still, we are also using this deep learning technology. Researchers are trying to find out different genome structures, trying to find out the different detection techniques by using these deep learning techniques. And this can be reflected from the number of journal papers and articles which are published during these 3 or 4 months. And we can see a number of large collections of papers has been published on these deep learning techniques, where we are trying to just identify the different coronaviruses structures, and we are trying to detect the diseases using the X-ray images and other techniques. So deep learning definitely providing a platform or technology that can help us to come out from such situations. So this is the deep learning, and now thing is why people are excited about this deep learning. The reason behind this, its applicability in different application areas, and lots of applications domains are there where this deep learning is successfully be applied, and you can observe it in your daily life also. In every home now we can observe or deep learning techniques is available, and it is applicable in many application domains. And I just take few of them. One of the application area where it is successfully applied is the image classification. You all know what is the image classification is. where we have the set of images and we have to categorize these images on the basis of the contents. So it is one of the successful area where this deep learning technique is being used, and this can be reflected from the results that is achieved during a competition held on ImageNet. And you can see here from 2000 till 2011, the error rate for the image classification problem provided on the ImageNet is approximately 26%. But now in 2012, first time this deep neural network is applied for the image classification. Deep neural network is not a new concept; it's a very old concept. But for image classification, it is being used in 2012 here, and we can see the accuracy over here. The accuracy or the error rate is reduced by 10% from 26% to approximately 16%. Error rate is being received, and this 10% decay definitely gives an attention to of all takes attention from all over the world from the researchers, and that's why from 2012 onwards, every year the winner is one of the deep neural network, and nowadays we have the accuracy that is better than human being. So as human accuracy error rate is approximately 5%, but our machines now is able to recognize the objects through the images, and takes the error rate, giving the error rate approximately 3%. You can see how successful the deep learning techniques is being applied for image classification. So now other applications where this deep learning is used, one of the popular application is the machine translation. In this machine translation, now you can see the Google is providing a Google translator where we can translate from one language to other and vice versa. And this is very successful. Initially, 10 years before, you can see it's not easy to convert a English to Hindi or Hindi to English. But now we are very successfully can convert one Hindi to English or English to Hindi or some in other languages. And this will be helpful if you go some outside India, and if you visit some country where the common language is not known to you, and then you can use this machine translator to identify the signboards and other documents to study. So this is the machine translation where this deep learning is successfully applied. Other successful application is the speech recognition. Every pocket, we can say, has this device now. Every mobile devices, Alexa, these are now coming with the deep learning based trained systems, voice recognition systems. Initially, when you buy a smartphone, first you have to train it by your voice. But nowadays, you just buy the smartphone, it start working on your voice commands. So that is the power of the deep learning. So we can see the deep learning is applied in many application areas. One popular application area is the game playing, where now the games are available which learns itself and on the go, and can perform better than a human expert. So deep learning is not only applied in these application areas. There are many more other application areas are there where this deep learning is showing its accuracy, showing its success. So now the question is, why deep learning and why now? Since, as I have discussed earlier, that it's not a new concept, but at that time it was not so successful. But the first reason is why deep learning. As we know, in the traditional classification system, classifiers, they just, what we have to do, we have to during the training we have to tell the classifier that you have to extract the features, and on those features we have trained our classifiers. But here the features which we are talking about, we have to tell the machine which features we have to extract. You have to tell the machine you have to extract the color, hue, you have to extract the points, you have to extract the ages in terms of, if we're talking about the image classification, and you have to extract the textures, you have to extract the corners, and you have to tell the machine that which features you are going to extract, and you have to train on the basis of those features. So these type of features where human has to tell the machine which features you have to work is known as handcrafted features. So that is a major drawback, because these features may have some irrelevant features, may have some missing features that are required for the classification accuracy. That's why error rate in the image classification was 26% for the traditional classifiers. But now, at present scenario, if we talk in the deep learning, this drawback has been removed, and now deep learning can extract the features automatically. There is no need to tell the machine that you have to extract these features. While in this deep learning, automatically we have to give the whole image as an input. or we have to give the input to the whole object, and it extract the features automatically. So this automation makes it successful in different areas. So that is why we are now able to use deep learning in more broad way. Second question is why now? In 1990s, the system was failed due to these reasons. First one is for a deep neural network, for the training, we require a very large data set. So now at this present scenario, we have publicly available data sets are available, and on daily basis, exponential data is generating day by day. We have the Wikipedia for the text, we have the ImageNet for the images, and lots of data is available publicly, and we can use those data sets to train our system. And that's why we are having the large data set for training. Second, since deep neural network requires to train millions of parameters, so its complexity is very high. So for handling that complexity, we require a high performance devices, and that is also not an issue at this time. We have high performance devices like GPU, TPUs, and those are available in a very lower price. So now you are able to train your system on a high performance devices. And if still you don't have the high performance devices with you, you have the cloud platforms are available where you can execute you can make your design, your model, you can execute your model over here, you can train your model over here. And that's why now we have the large data set, we have the high performance devices, and with these improved techniques we are now able uh, to solve many of the real world problems by using this deep learning techniques. So these are the big players which are using deep learning, and they are getting very tremendous accuracy. Just like Facebook, they are increasing their productivity by using deep learning. Facebook for automated face tagging, Microsoft for academic data analysis, Google for Google translation, Twitter for sentiment analysis, and lots of different companies are there which are using this deep learning technologies. And these are some of the startups and which are helping the industries to use the deep learning. And I think you have heard that deep learning is eating the software. So that's mean all the old softwares are being replaced by deep learning due to its success as compared to the traditional classifiers. So this is all about the success story of the deep learning. Now let's try to understand the fundamentals of deep learning, how this deep learning is being implemented. So this deep learning is basically inspired from the perceptron that is invented in 1950s at Frank, and this person just gives the first simple mathematical model of the biological brain, biological neurons available in a brain. So in our brain, we have different sensors, and those sensors senses the we have the five sensors. They senses the input from the environment, and this is information is received by the neurons, and we have the millions of neurons attached with each other in a parallel form, and we have different logical circuits for different organ, and they perform the processing, and then they gives the some output, and on the basis of those outputs our organs start working. So that is the neurons, and very powerful. And this person just presented a very simple mathematical model of this perceptron. So if we go through this perceptron, so you can see here we have a cell, and this cell takes the input from the dendrites, and it processes something, and then it generates the output through the axon, and this output is connected to with some other neurons. So the same concept is being implemented over here, where we are using a cell, and here which takes some input from the environment, process it, and they generate the output, and this output is taken by some other neurons. So here this perceptron is the basic building block of the deep neural network. So let's try to understand what the operation is being performed within the cell. So if we talk about the cell, so cell, there are two basically functions are being performed in a single step. So first operation is the summation function, and second is the non-linearity function. So how we are going to perform actually? So as I have now talked, this cell is connected to the input value. So we have the set of input values, and every input is associated with some weights, to this particular cell. And then this first function calculated the weighted sum of these input values. So how we are going to calculate? We are just find out the sum of element wise multiplication. So we will calculate x0 into w0. We can write here x0 into w0 plus x1 into w1 plus up to xn into w1. So this way, for short, we can write that input vector we can represent as x, and weight vector we can represent as w. So we are performing xw. Then we add a bias over here. We add a bias over here to shift the activation function. So here we add a bias. So that is the output. That is the output of this submission function. So this is a linear function basically. So this linear function is the output of this first functionality of this cell. Then this particular function, the output of this particular summation function is given to a non-linear function. And here we are just introducing the non-linearity in our linear system. So after non-linearity, we just get the output. We get the output. So this is a very simple mathematical model that is provided in the perceptron. So what we are doing, we are just calculating the xw plus b, and then we are applying the activation function g, where x is the input values and w are the weight values. Now we just talk about the activation function. Now generally this is the linear function, and to convert the linear function to non-linear function, we use different non-linear activation functions. Such activation function, one of the example is the sigmoid, and you will see here sigmoid is a non-linear activation function which which gives the output in between 0 and 1. So it is a non-linear activation function which we can apply. Now there are different types of activation functions are available, just like sigmoid activation function, 10H, rectified linear unit. Basically in deep neural network, we generally use ReLU. The reason behind it, since deep neural network is already a complex system, it has millions of parameters to train. So if we use sigmoid or 10H type activation function, then they will increase the complexity. So to overcome these complexity, what we do, we use a simple non-linear function, a rectified linear unit. And generally in this rectified linear unit, what we do, all the negative values are set to 0, and rest of the values are the identical, same remains the same. So we use the identity function for rest of the values, and for negative values we set it to 0. So it is very simple and non-linear. That's why we generally use ReLU activation function in our deep neural network. Now the question is why we are using non-linear activation function. So generally in our real world, lots of problems, many problems, most of the problems are the non-linear problems, not the linear problems. If the function is if the problem is a linear problem, then we can easily separate out them using a linear function. But here the problems are non-linear, so we require a non-linearity in our function. That's why we have to add non-linear activation function in our system. Now let's try to understand with a numerical example, because this is the backbone of the deep neural network. Every architecture may be different, model may be different, but their mathematics behind that models are always same. So here what we are going, we are taking an example. Let's say take the input values are 2, 3, -1, 5, and these are associated with some weights. These are the weight values, and we have added a bias over here. So now we just calculate the value. So how we are going to calculate the value? 2 into 0.1 plus 3 into 0.5 minus 1 into 2.5, 5 into 0.2, then bias 3.0. So this is the value, and this value will be, let's say this value is 3.2. So the output of this summation function is 3.2. Then we will apply the nonlinear activation function. Here we are applying the sigmoid. So the output we are getting 0.96. So here the output of this system is 0.96 for this input value. So this is the basic functionality of the perceptron. Now for simplicity, now think we have to learn from this perceptron how we are going to make a deep neural network. So now for simplicity, now I am just representing these two functions with a single neuron. So now here you will see here, here what we are doing, we are taking the input from the input environment. Now for simplicity, for better understanding, we are considering these as also as a set of neurons. So these are a set of neurons with the identical function. That means if the input is 0, its output is x0. The same output will be there. Input is x1, the output will be x1, and so on. Input is x2, output will be x2, and so on. So these neurons, since they are the identical function, they are taking the input from the environment. We can call these set of neurons as the input layer neurons. We tell them as the input layer neurons. Okay. Then we have the output. If we have a binary classification problem, then definitely only one neuron is sufficient for the binary classification problem. So this is the neurons in the output layer is known as the output layer neuron. If a binary classification problem is there, the one neuron is sufficient. But if the classification problem is not binary, multi-class problem is there, then we have to use more number of neurons in the output layer. And the functionality of each neuron is is different. So if we have the multi-output system, then this becomes a multi-output perceptron, where we have the input layer neurons, we have the output layer neurons. The functionality of each neuron is same. Let's, if I have to take the output of this function, how I will calculate x0 into corresponding weight plus x1 into corresponding weight plus x2 into corresponding weight plus xn into corresponding weight plus bias of this plus activation function. This will generate xw plus t. Now, then similarly, if I want to calculate the value of this, then x0 into corresponding weight, it is not connected. It is not compulsory that every neuron in the previous layer is connected to the every neuron of the output layer neurons or next layer neurons. So x0 is not connected, so no worry. Now x1 with the corresponding weight plus x2 plus corresponding weight and so on. Then activate, then its bias value, then activation function. So that will give you the other output. So I can get the two outputs, output 1 and output 2. So this is a simple function. So we can see we can add any number of output layer neurons, depends on the classification problem, which type of classification problem we have. So this is the multi-output perceptron. Now what happens? Actually, if we talk about this system, here we are having some input values, and from these input values, we are getting some output values. Now, if we see here, here the input values are not changeable because we are taking it from the environment. The input can be anything, and the output is based on the formula which we are using. Now, what is changeable over here? The changeable over here is the weights only, and these weights are considered as the features. These weights are considered as the features of the system. So what we have to do, we are taking the input, we are extracting these features. So how we are going to extract, we will discuss in few slides. So here these are the weights are representing the features over here, and on the basis of these features we are getting the output. Now what happens if your problem is very simple? Then very few set of features are sufficient to the classification problem. But what happens when your problem is complex? Then these few number of features are not sufficient. Then you require more number of features. Now how to generate more number of features? To generate more number of features, I have to need more number of neurons. So to introduce more number of features, to extend more number of features, I introduce more number of neurons in the form of what I will do. I will add more neurons in between input layer and output layer. So since these are in between the input and output layer, that's why we are calling it hidden layer neurons. So I am using hidden layer neurons. Why I am using? Because as I have used more number of hidden layer neurons over here, so more features will be extracted. This means there is a connection between x0 to h0, x0 then x0 to h1 and so on. So these are the weights, plus we have added more weights. All the hidden layer neurons are connected to output layer neurons. So some more weights are connected. So you will see more features are extracted, and on the basis of these features, now we are able to classify the input into its into particular category. So this particular way, that's mean if I have a complex problem, I need more number of features, and to extend more number of features, I need more neurons, and operation of each neuron is same. That's mean if I want to calculate the operation, if I want to calculate the output of this, how I will calculate? First, I will calculate the output of H0 hidden neuron. How I will calculate? X0 into corresponding weight plus x1 into corresponding weight plus xn into corresponding weight plus its bias value. Then activation function, it will generate output H0. Similarly, it will generate output H1, it will generate output H2, it will generate output Hn. Then these are also connected to output layer neuron with some weight. So H0 into corresponding weight plus H1 into corresponding weight plus H2 into corresponding weight and so on. Then bias of this, then activation function, it will generate output 1. Similarly, I can generate with bias value V1, I can generate output 2. So what is happening? Over here, I have increased the number of features. I have increased the number of weights. That is the features, representation of features. So I have increased the number of weights. That means more features. That means that will be helpful to extract, helpful to identify the objects. So this is the behind why we are adding the hidden layer neurons. Now, if you have more number of features, so definitely you have to include. If you want to extend more features, then you have to include more number of hidden layer neurons. Okay, so this is known as multi-layer perceptron because I have included one more layer in between input and output layer. This is known as hidden layer neuron. So this is a multi-layer perceptron. Now what happens? As it is not compulsory that all the previous layer neurons are connected to next layer neurons. So that's why we have represented it by this cross sign. Okay, so this is representing that there is a connection between input layer and hidden layer to output layer neuron. So this is a multi-layer perceptron. Now, if your problem is more complex and you are not getting a good accuracy, then the only thing is you have to extract more features. So how we can extract the more features? To include more number of neurons. So how we can include? Either you have to include only one layer. So what, in place of one layer, what I do, I just add more number of hidden layer neurons, more number of hidden layers. So what you are doing, you are adding more number of hidden layers in between input and output layer. So it becomes a deep neural network. That's why we can say deep neural network is an extension of the perceptron only. So now you can understand the mathematical concept behind each neuron is same. Here only difference is we are using more number of hidden layer neurons. Now why we are able to include more number of hidden layer neurons? Because now we have the powerful systems, we have the data to train by this deep neural network, and that's why deep neural network can be used. So this is the simple architecture of the deep neural network. Now let's try to apply the deep neural network and try to understand how we are going to apply in for a particular problem. So let's try to understand this deep neural network for a problem, and the problem is a binary classification problem. Here the problem is we have to design a system. We have to design a system that will take some environmental condition and will decide whether my flight will be delayed or not on the basis of the environmental conditions. So it is a binary classification problem that will take some environmental input and tells me or tells the system whether my flight will be delayed or not. So let's take, there are two environmental inputs. One is the temperature, second one is the wind speed. So on the basis of these two parameters, I have to design a system that will give me the output, whether my flight will be delayed or not. So how the system is designed? So let's try to discuss. So how many input values are there? There are two input values. So now I have to design a deep neural network. So first I have to decide the input layers. I have to decide the input layer. So how many neurons will be there input layer? It depends on the number of input values. There are two input values, so there will be only two neurons in the input layer. Okay, then we will talk about the output layer. The output layer neurons, how many neurons will be required? Since it is a binary classification problem, so only single neuron is sufficient. Now we talk about the hidden layer neurons. We can take any number of hidden layer neurons. It is a hyperparameter basically. Okay, so we are taking a hidden layer neurons. Now what I have to do, I have make the connections. I make the connections over here like this. This will be connected like this. Now I will take the input -20 from here. I will take the input 45 from here, and every input is associated with some weight. So we can take one, we can take 1 1 1 2, then we can take 2 1 and 2 2. Then we can take W1 3 and W2 3 and so on. These are the weights. Then these are the hidden layer neurons. They are also associated with weight. W0, W1, W2, and they will get the output. The operation is same. Now what will happen? I will perform -20 into corresponding weight plus 45 into corresponding weight plus bias plus activation function. That is the output of this hidden layer neuron, and so on. And output will be H0 into W0, H1 into W1 plus H2 into W2 plus its bias value. Then it will generate activation function. Then it will generate the output. So this is the architecture. This is a simple architecture. But now how we are going to perform the training? So now this is the final architecture which we have designed. Now how we are going to train our system? So actually what happens actually, how we start working? We can see here the input are the environmental dependent. We can't say anything about the input. Output is fixed. It is based on the formula. Now what is changeable? The changeable thing is the weights only. So how we start training our system? So initially what we do, we started how we take these weights value. We started the weight values by initializing them a random value. So we initialize the random weights. We start the training of our system with random initialization of the weights. So these are the random initialization, and then so this is a random initialization. Similarly, we will initialize randomly these weights also. Now what will happen? I will give this input. These are the random initialized weights. then it will generate some output. It will generate some output. Let's take the output generated by it is 0.05. So this is a predicted output. This is a predicted output for the input value minus 20 and 45. So we have started with the random initialization of the weights. We have processed the same mathematics and we got the output 0.05. But we know the actual output, because this is a training data set. So we know the actual output. Actual output is 1. Actual output is 1 over here. So we can say for this environmental condition, my flight will be 100% delayed, but my system says only 0.05. That means there is a difference. So this difference can be represented as a loss function. So there is a loss. So now we can calculate the loss. So now loss is a function of predicted output and actual output. So actual output is y. Actual output is y, and predicted output is again a function of input values and weights. Input values and weights. Okay, that means predicted output is again a function of input values. Input are the x and weight are the theta. So here theta representing weight values. Weight values. So here we can say we can calculate the loss by finding the predicted value. We have the actual value, and by using these two values I can find out the loss. So now here you will see this loss function, which value is changeable. The y, actual output, is not changeable, because this is a training data set. This is not changeable. Input, we can't do anything with the inputs. Now what is changeable? Only the theta is the only changeable thing. That means by updating this theta, we will be able to minimize this loss, because our purpose is to minimize this loss. How we are going to minimize? By just minimizing this loss, and this loss can be minimized only by changing this theta. So in our system, the changing of the theta to minimize the loss is known as the training of the neural network, training of the deep neural network. Okay, so now here we are just taking only single input sample to calculate the loss. Generally we calculate the loss for a batch of the input sample, So for example, we started with the random initialization of the weights. Then we give the first input sample, it will give the some output, but actually is 1. Then we give for the same weights, we will give the next input sample as an input. Then we will get the output 0.02, but actually is 0. Then we give next input sample, I will get output 0.96, actually is 1. Next input sample, I am getting 0.035 as predicted, and actually is 1. So now I can calculate the average loss. I will add up all the loss of each input sample, then I will divide it by number of input samples. So this is the total loss. And now my objective is to minimize this loss. So minimization of the loss by updating the weights only is known as the training of the neural network. So how I am going to train my neural network? I am going to train my neural network by updating the weights. So how we can update the weight? So my objective is I have to minimize this weights, and let's represent this weight as j theta. Represent this weight is j theta, where theta are the weights only. So let's try to understand how we can minimize. So one of the method to minimize is this is a surface diagram where we are representing the loss function and the weights, and we started with the random point. So we started from this point. Okay, so now we have started from this point. This is a randomly selected point. Now how we are going to minimize this loss? So for this, in mathematics there is a function that is a derivative. We can calculate the derivative to minimize the function. So we calculate the derivative with respect to theta, and it's a vector. It has the direction towards the maximization, but we have to minimize. So what I will do, I have to move in the reverse direction. So what I will do, now I will update the weights. By subtracting del j theta upon del theta, that is a derivative with some parameter, that is the eta, that is known as learning rate. So to control this particular derivative value, so what I am doing, I am calculating the derivative of this point, and now since I have to minimize the loss, so I will update the weights by subtracting this value. So after subtracting this value, I will reach to some new location. So now weights are updated. Now what I will do, I will again give the same input samples With these new weights, I will get some predicted output. I have the actual output. I will again calculate the loss. Then I will again calculate the derivative. Then I will update the weights by this formula. And this process is to be repeated n number of times. So I will repeat this process n number of times. And after n number of times, I will reach to some minima. And after reaching to some minima, I will set my weights. Now weights are fixed. Now in my system, weights will be fixed. So once weights are fixed, that means training is completed. And once the training is completed, now what you have to do? You can give the testing sample as input and it will give you the output. So this is the training of the neural network. And this particular procedure is given a name, that is a stochastic gradient descent algorithm. So this is the algorithm which you can understand easily. So now we have started with the random weights. And then for n epochs, we have to repeat. We take the input samples, we calculate the loss, then we calculate the derivative, then we update the weights, and this we have to repeat for n number of times. And after n number of times, we fix the weights, and then we can test our sample. So this is the very simple approach for the training of our deep neural network. Okay. So now if we see, looks very simple, but if we see in the practice, what will happen? My loss function may be of this type, where you can see there are many minimas are there, Plutos are there, so it's not easy to minimize the function. Yes, please.
Sir, good evening, sir. Sorry to interrupt. Sir, we are unable to see your slides. Can you please share your screen?
I've already shared the screen. Okay, let me share it again. Is it visible now?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. I think you should pin, if it is not visible, I think you have to pin my particular presentation. Then you will be able to see slides. Okay. So this is the first problem where we face the difficulty to optimize the function. Second is how we are going to choose this learning rate. If we choose this learning rate very small, then it can tap into a local optima. But if we take a very large learning rate, then overfitting problem will be there. So how to choose the best learning rate? So first method is we just take a hit and trial. Just we start with some random learning rate and then see the response of our system. Then we take some other learning rate, then see the response of the system. But it's not a good method. Practically, it is not feasible also. So we need some smarter method. So different researches has been done, and different researchers propose different learning rate methods to choose. And one of these method is the adaptive learning rate, and you can also design your own learning rate. So I'm not going through the details of these learning rates. So this is one of the issues of the deep neural network. Now, second major issues in the deep neural network is the overfitting problem. Now, what is this overfitting actually? If we say there is an underfitting, means if my system is not trained, gives the accuracy neither for the training data set nor for the testing data set, then we can say it is an underfitting problem. But when my system is trained very good for the training data set, but do not perform well for the testing data set, then this problem is a overfitting problem. Now, we have to how we are going to regularize this overfitting problem. So I will discuss only two. There are lots of regularization techniques. I will discuss two that are basically used in deep neural network generally. So one is dropout and second is early stopping. Now, what is the dropout? In the dropout phase, what we are going to do? Before that, we have to understand why this overfitting problem occurs in deep neural network. Actually, what happens? We have to train this system n number of times with different number of input samples. So what happens? These hidden layer neurons, the features, they train themselves very well for the training samples. That means some dependencies creating between the training data samples and the hidden layer neurons. So what will happen due to this dependency? Whenever a new testing samples comes, it do not respond properly and do not perform better results, do not give the better results. So to overcome this problem, to remove this dependency, what we do? We set the activation of some of the neurons to 0 in some of the iteration during the training process. This dropout is being performed during the training process only. So during the training process, we set some of the neurons to 0, activation to 0. So what will happen? At that duration of it, at that iteration, these hidden layers will not participate to update the weights. So definitely this dependency will be removed. In some iterations, we set other neurons activation function to 0. So this way, by using this dropout function, we are now able to reduce the dependency, and that will very much helpful to reduce the overfitting problem. Second criteria which we can use is the early stopping criteria. Now in this early stopping, what will happen generally whenever we train our system? So we have a data set and we divide the data set in two parts. One is the training and second one is the testing. So we have the train and test data set, and generally we train the system with the training data set and then we find out the test accuracy. But if we using this, then overfitting problem is there. So what we do here, during the training process, we divide the training data set into two sets. One is that all known as the train, and second one is known as the validation data set. Okay. So during the training process, this validation data set works as a testing data set, you can say. So during the training process, we first train, then simultaneously we also test our system. So what happens initially, we will observe that initially training as well as validation accuracy both start increasing. But after a particular point of time, training accuracy is still started increasing, but validation accuracy start decaying. Validation accuracy start decaying. So that is the starting of the overfitting problem. So we should stop over here. We should stop over here. So once we stop over here, then we can say when the validation data set is the data which is unknown to the deep neural network, because it is working as a testing accuracy, testing data set like. So definitely we can expect that our testing accuracy will be almost equal to the validation accuracy. So in this early stopping, we should stop our operation over here. So this is known as the early stopping criteria for the regularization of the overfitting problem. So this is the overall fundamental of the deep neural network. How this deep neural network is proceed, how we apply how we mathematically solve the deep neural network. Now this deep neural network is applied in many application areas. Different application areas are there where we can use the deep neural network, and one of the application area is the computer vision techniques. Okay, so here in computer vision techniques, I just briefed this today, and in tomorrow's lecture I will cover the whole part. So here in this deep learning for computer vision techniques, what we are doing here, we have a application is the image classification application, and we are going to use deep learning technique for this image classification. So if we see the traditional machine learning system over here, so in traditional machine learning system, what we do, we have a training data set, and in this training data set we have a classifier to train with this training data set. Then first we have to tell the classifier that you have to extract the features, and which features we have to tell. We have to extract the hue, we have to extract the corners, we have to extract the area, we have to extract the texture. So that is a drawback. That is a drawback of the traditional learning system. That's why their error rate is 26% in that computation. So now what will happen in deep neural network? This particular phase is removed. There is no need for the human intervention for telling which features you have to extract. Here the deep neural network automatically extract the features from the images, and that is the beauty of deep neural network. That is the beauty of deep neural network. So if we see before going to the deeper in the deep neural network application in the image classification, let's try to understand what are the images basically for which we are going to design the image classification problem. So you will see here, these are the images. This is the image for our human vision system. We can see an image of cat, and here our eyes are taking the picture of this cat, and our neurons are performing some operation, and that is telling that it is a cat. But if we talk about the computers, for a computer, this image is nothing more than the numbers only, because as you know, images are made up of pixels. The smallest point of the image is known as pixel, and every pixel has a value. If the image is black and white image, then each pixel value will be either 0 or 1. And if it is a grayscale image, then pixel value will be between 0 to 255. And if it is a color image, we can use any different types of model. If we are using RGB model, then we have 3 planes RGB, and each pixel has a value in between 0 to 255. So that means for a computer, this image is nothing more than the number, set of numbers, and we have to play with these numbers. So now we have to design a system which will take these numbers as an input and will try to classify this image into a particular category. For example, the number of categories which we are considering are cat, dog, hat, and mug. So I should design a system so that my system takes this input, then it should give the highest probability in the cat category. Only then we can say we have our system is good to perform the operation. Okay, so this is the images, and you can see it is not easy task for the machine to identify, to play with these numbers. There are other problems are there with the image classification. They are the variations available in the images. For example, viewpoint variations. Our eyes are able, our brain eyes logical circuit is able to identify the viewpoint variations. There lightning variations are there, due to which different types of shades are created in the images. It is not easy for the traditional classifiers to work with the in dim light images. Scale variations are there. Deformation is there. Intra-class variance. We have the same object, but their structure is different. So it is an intra-class variance. We have the occlusion, is still a very challenging problem where we have the obstacles in front of our object which we have to identify. So it's not easy in a image classification problem. It's not easy for machine to tackle out these variations. So traditional classifiers are not able to cover up many of these variations, but deep learning now able to tackle out these variations. Still we have the problem of occlusion, but we are not able to tackle with different types of variations available in the images. So this is the problems which we face using in the traditional machine learning system, but now we are able to resolve these problems in deep neural network. So this is all about the today's lectures, and one more slide I can cover. These are the, since in deep neural network, what we have to do, we require a large training data set, and nowadays there is no issue for the training data set for image classification. We have MNIST data set for handwritten numerals. We have CIFAR tiny images. We have ImageNet archive of the images. So these images can be used to train my system. So now we have the training system. I know the technology. Now I will implement this technology for the image classification system. So in tomorrow's session, I will cover up the convolution neural network, how we are going to use deep neural network for image classification. How we will discuss how we can design the deep neural network architecture for the image classification problem. Now the session is open for the problems. You can discuss the problems, please. Yes, please. You can ask the floor. If there is any issues, you can discuss, or you can type in your chat box.
Hello,
Yes.
sir. Good evening, sir. Yes, sir, in a neural network, how we can decide how many number of neurons can be takes place in a particular problem? How to choose the number of neurons?
Very good question. Actually, what happens? Yes, sir.
It is input, whether it is input neurons or hidden neurons. How we can decide, sir? Actually,
the first question is how we decide how many neurons should be there in the hidden layer. Okay, or how many neurons in the input layer or output layer neurons. So we can say input and output can be decided. If we have the n number of inputs, then we can take n number of input layer neurons. So there is no issue in that to decide the input layer neurons. And in case of output layer neurons, if we have to classify it into n classes, we can take n neurons in the output layer. Now the question is how many neurons we can take in the hidden layer, in the hidden layers neurons. So it is actually a hyperparameter. The reason behind it, if we increase the more number of neurons in the hidden layer, so definitely we are able to extract more features, and we can get, theoretically we can get more accuracy, we can get better accuracy. But what happens, more number of hidden layer neurons, more number of extracted features, that means more complexity will be there, and your system will be complex one. So if you increase more number of neurons, more complexity, then your system will not be able, many times your system will not be able to handle that complexity. So you have to manage. If you increase the number of neurons, your accuracy increases. But if you increase the number of neurons, your complexity also increases. So you have to balance between the complexity and the accuracy which you want to achieve. Are you getting? So that's why it is a hyperparameter. You have to maintain something. If your system can handle, you can increase more neurons. And practically, in theoretically, it is valid that if we increase more number of neurons, we get more accuracy. But practically, in some scenario, what happens if we increase more number of neurons in some extent, and definitely error rate start increasing also. So it depends. It is a hyperparameter, and based on this complexity and accuracy, you can choose it. So other questions, how to decide neurons in hidden layer? I have given the reply. Then is neural network supervised or unsupervised? We can work in both, in the supervised manner and unsupervised manner. I have discussed the supervised way to work on. You can use autoencoder and other things for unsupervised manners.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, I have a question, that is how to choose the activation function.
Yes, activation function. Actually, as I have discussed, the activation function is only introduced to add the non-linearity in our system. Okay, and we have to choose activation function. Definitely, activation function can have the impact on your system. But if you take a complex activation function, then it will increase your complexity, and complexity is one of the major cause in the deep neural network. That's why our normal systems are not able to execute those deep neural networks. So here we try to choose that activation function that introduce the non-linearity, as well as it should be simple. But as we have used ReLU layer, but still there are lots of variations are also available in ReLU layer, just leaked ReLU layer and exponential ReLU layer. There are different types of ReLU layer are also used, but it is based. It is basically you have to include the activation function, keeping in mind that if I use complex, then it will increase my complexity. Okay. So, sir, do we have the values for neurons? No, we don't have the values of the neurons, because what do you mean by values? If you're talking about the weights, so these weights are learned during the training process only. Okay. Yes. Any other query, please?
Okay, sir, I have another question.
Yes,
Sir,
please.
sir, do you want to cover the unsupervised learning in your next session?
Actually, I will cover the convolution neural network, and that is a supervised network which I have planned. So
Okay.
I am not going to cover that unsupervised.
Okay.
Hello,
Yes.
sir.
Yes.
Yes, if you're deciding the number of neurons in the hidden layer, is there anything like it should be greater than the input layers or something like that? Any values?
No such type of constraints is there. You can use any number of hidden layers. More layers, more features. It's a simple concept. More layers, more features. If your system is complex, definitely it will not be easy to classify it or identify it using a few number of features. That's why you have to increase the number of neurons to extract the more number of features.
Thank you.
I think
Hello, sir.
Network,
Yes.
it is dimensionality reduction. So the number of neurons in the hidden layer may not be decided for output layer. They must be lesser than the input layer, isn't it?
Output layer is based on the number of classes we are choosing. And generally in image, if you talk in terms of images are of very big size. So their input size is very large, but output size, the number of classes maybe 1,000 or 2,000 classes only there. Yes.
But hidden layer neurons must be less than the input, because we are going to do dimensionality reduction. So it has to be lesser, isn't it?
No, there is no compulsion. You can have more than that, but you can also have, as in case of images. If we talk about the images can have number of input layers, input neurons as 1024 by 1024, but hidden layer neurons have only 15. Only 15 or 20 hidden layer neurons may be sufficient for that. So it depends on the application to application. Yes, please next.
Hello, sir. Could you
Yes.
please explain this with one example, sir, tomorrow session?
Yeah, definitely. I will give lots of examples, not a single example, to understand the basic concept of this deep neural network.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yes. Any other query, please?
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. My question is, while extracting features, why ReLU is recommended to use? why not other activation functions? Is there any specific detail?
Please pardon. Please repeat your question, please.
While extracting features from images, why ReLU is recommended to use? ReLU
Okay.
activation function.
Actually, I have already answered this question. The reason behind it, since in image classification, the size of the images is very large. So it is not easy to handle such a large images for deep neural network. We have to train millions of parameters, and their complexity is very high. And if we use the more complex activation function, then definitely complexity will increase. So we have to use a simplified activation function that should be nonlinear, as well as it should be easy to calculate. So ReLU is very simple and it is nonlinear. It is only what it is doing. I will show you in the tomorrow's session. We have to only all the negative values are set to 0 and all other values are remain same. So it is very simple to calculate. That's why we recommended to use ReLU in image classification.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
How to choose weight for neural network? Is it randomly chosen or any specific formula? Oh, I have already discussed that we started with the random initialization, and in the training, after the training process, these weights are updated automatically. That is the feature of the deep neural network. That is the automatic features extraction. Yes, any other query, please? Okay, I think there is no more query. So, Dr. Kushum?
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Forward the neural networks are efficient or feedback neural networks are efficient?
Please pardon?
Feed forward neural networks and feedback neural networks are there, no, sir? Which one is best suitable for executing, sir?
Actually, feed backward neural network where we give back the feedback to our previous layers definitely will perform better.
Oh.
Yes, please. Any other query? Okay, thank you very much, and we'll meet in the tomorrow session. And in the tomorrow session, I will cover the convolution neural network and try to cover, if time permits, then try to cover the different popular CNN models and how they performs their operation for the image classification. Okay, so thank you very much. Yes.
All participants learn a lot from this lecture, and rest CNN we will show. CNN we will continue the next.
Ma'am, your voice is inaudible.
Okay. I'm So we will continue with the CNN in tomorrow class itself. So it's going to start from the same time, 5 to 6. We will have the session for your CNN model. And please post your name so we can make out your attendance, because we need to upload it in Atal portal. So make sure you are posting your name for both of the sessions. Okay, thank you.
Okay, ma'am, are you going to share the PPTs of this research persons?
Yes, I have already, the first session PPT I have already uploaded on Canvas. So you can download from there only. All the PPTs I'm going to upload it.
Okay, thank you.
So tomorrow we are having the class at the same time from 10 to 12, and then evening session 5 to 6. Thank you. Thank you, sir. So now all of you can leave, and if any of you is having any query related to anything, so you can mail me. I will try to respond to you. Same. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Hello, ma'am.